Alright, so after the release of Resident Evil in 1996, director Shinji Mikami had cemented his name in horror game history, but following his creation of this now legendary series, he wanted his next project to go in a bit of a different direction. That's what we're going to talk about today, so here's Resident Evil with dinosaurs. Okay, obviously I'm oversimplifying things by calling it that, but Dino Crisis has always been compared to that series, for obvious reasons. With that in mind, it does manage to have its own identity. I mean, it does have some key differences in its approach, but if it couldn't shake being looked at as Resident Evil with dinosaurs in 1999, it sure as shit isn't going to over 25 years later. It's not like this game was a one and done either. This game got sequels, and even a light gun game, but these games were a mixed bag to say the least. Dino Crisis 2 did well, and most will tell you it's a good game, but Dino Stalker failed to do much, and Dino Crisis 3 was so bad that it killed the series. At the end of the day, Dino Crisis was never going to reach the heights of Resident Evil, which has had its fair share of blunders, but a moderately successful series like Dino Crisis isn't going to be able to walk off failures quite so easily. And after the bomb that was Dino Crisis 3 in 2003, we're yet to see another game in the series. I've never played any of those other games, and I've only ever completed this game once, but anyway, let's take a look at Dino Crisis and see if it's worthy of its cult status. Alright, let's see what the fuss is about with these dinosaurs. So, our story begins with members of the Secret Operation Raid Team, or SORT, heading to this secret island after being tipped off by an agent that there is a man of significant importance in some secret research facility that we'll want to get our hands on. This agent, Tom, has infiltrated the facility as a researcher and has come across Dr. Kirk, a big-name scientist involved in some energy research thing who was believed to have been killed in an accident 3 years prior. So, the mission is simple. Find this fella and bring him back. Our team, consisting of Regina, Gale, Rick, and Cooper, make the drop to the island, but only 3 of us regroup in time, so old mate Cooper is left behind.
What about Cooper?
Forget him. Time's up.
Wait!
Hey, I'm sure he'll be just fine. Anyway, we rock up at the facility and Rick runs ahead to find the control room on the first floor so he can have access to the security systems. While he's off doing that, we check up with Gale, who notices the aftermath of something that went down not long before we rocked up.
So who were they fighting?
This wasn't much of a fight. I don't think these guards hit anything before getting sliced and diced.
Looks like we got that to look forward to, but in the meantime, we start poking around for keys and supplies before getting a call from Rick telling us that we need to turn the power back onto the facility before we can do anything, but on our way to the generator, we discover something rather unpleasant.
That's disgusting.
Well, better not let this go to waste. Gal hangs back while we go do some charming little puzzle to get the power back on, but before we can get back to him, we hear gunfire and screaming outside. We run out there only to find a blood trail and something far worse than any zombie.
What is this?
We make a run for it. Wrestling the controls, we somehow don't take any damage, and the dinosaur eventually leaves us alone. For now, at least. The build-up in this intro is really good. I mean, you feel the sense of danger, and the dinosaurs really feel intimidating. Anyway, Rick thinks we're taking the piss when we say dinosaur, but we're fucking serious, mate. He tells us to head over to the control room, but a lot of this place is still locked up, so we need to use the vents to get around. When we do catch up to Rick and explain the situation, he's got the right idea of calling in the chopper and leaving. Only problem is Gale has the radio, so I guess we better get settled in. Some of the facility has no power, but for now we're going to do a sweep of this area and look for the doctor. We find out early on we're going to need these digital disc keys to get around, but Rick is also helping us out by unlocking these laser thingos. Oh boy, are these bloody helpful. We managed to get some extra parts for our pistol that don't really make combat any easier, which we find out after being cornered by these 2 dinosaurs who beat us up pretty bad. Probably best to avoid most fights, I'd say. Anyway, we unlock our first DDK lock and head into this office where we find some scientist in pretty bad shape. He doesn't know where Kirk is, but he gives us a key before carking it. We've got the other key, but not the code, so we'll be back. Now, Rick reckons he's seen some bloke around the training room, but so far on the way there, all I'm finding is more of these fuckers, and they are pissed. Once we're in the training room, we find the key for the other backup generator, but shit goes south pretty quickly. Now, where the fuck have you been? I've been worried sick. Oh, and this radio is balked, which is just lovely, so it's back to Rick, I guess, because he might be able to fix it. We quickly power up the other generator, then it's back to Rick, who needs to have a quick yarn with us.
Rick, open the shutter to the underground area.
Fuck, that chair squeak is hilarious.
It's a distress signal from one of our team members. It must be Cooper.
Yeah, I have a feeling that is definitely not Cooper. Don't ask me how I know though. Anyway, we reckon it's Tom, and despite Gale's insistence on leaving it, Rick wants to go help out, so we go give him a hand. Oh, and I love how despite Rick being able to just strut through these places, we are immediately fucked up by this guy. And he doesn't even help. Mate, what the fuck was that? You just left me back there.
They came out of nowhere. Didn't have a chance.
Tom, can you tell us what's going on here?
Kirk's insane. His experiments have nothing to do with energy development.
Yeah, no shit. Now, Tom is looking pretty rough, so we go restore power to the giant elevator so we can get him to the medical room. Simple enough, right? Well, the problem is, as soon as we leave these guys, they walk into a room without checking it, and you can guess what happens next. We find an ID card in here, which we'll need to overwrite to access more of the lab. Whatever, but for some reason I can't take old mate's gun. I mean, a Mac-10 would be very fucking useful right now, you'd think. Anyway, we steal this fella's fingerprints to rewrite his ID card and head deeper into the lab. Now, apparently there's a secret lab in this secret lab that not even the regular Joe Blows know the location of, so we need to dig for clues. We find this guy in this gas room that we, tried to save. I don't know, I probably should have read the instructions first. We do score his library card though, but we get attacked when we're trying to leave. Haha, sucked in, fuckwit. Heading back to the library, we use old mate's card, do a quick puzzle, and access this clue we've been hearing about. Yeah, this game is really puzzle heavy, but hey, it works for me. Now, it turns out we need a couple of these keys to access this super duper secret lab through the computer room, and the other is in the chief's office. The code for the safe was apparently on these keys the whole time, so we get the other key, but are rudely interrupted when we try to leave. We don't want to back down from a fight, so we show this fucker who's boss with the pistol, because it's absolutely fucking useless in any other situation. Once that's out of the way, we get Gale on the phone and get this secret door open. In Kirk's little lab, we find this machine doing something. I don't know, his diary mentions something about it, but I didn't care that much. There's not much else going on in here, but when we go back to the other room, it appears Kirk has tripped off the security system, locking us in this room. We crack open this panel and I spend a good 10 minutes on this puzzle so we can leave. Now we've got to leave fast, and our options are to either run and gun through the facility or trust Rick in helping us through Kirk's emergency hatch. To be fair, Gale is a dick, and we didn't really want to hang out with him more than we needed to, so the choice is obvious. We run back to Kirk's terminal, do this cool little puzzle with the 3 locks, and make our way back to the hangar where we finally run into the bloke that we're looking for. Now Dr. Kirk, let me be blunt. Did you cause the crisis with these dinosaurs?
Well, that depends what you mean by crisis.
So we tell him we're getting him out of here, but he's not keen on that whole cooperation thing, so Gale rocks up and helps us with a bit of convincing.
Well, according to the government, I'm officially deceased, correct?
If that's the way you want it, I'd be more than happy to oblige. So what'll it be, genius?
Now, Gale doesn't seem to give 2 shits about his research and gets us to take Kirk's key to the communication room so we can get the chopper to pick us up. He'll drop Kirk with Rick, as apparently he has unfinished business to attend to. Whatever that means. We sort out the antenna easy enough, but then happen to run into an old friend who is not happy to see us. We flee, but then we have to hold him off until Rick can unlock this door for us. After all that, we reach out to the chopper and tell him that we need to get out of here right now, so come get us at the helipad. By now, the island is throwing all that it can at us, but after a bit of dodging, we eventually get there. Rick is here with Kirk, but Gale is nowhere to be seen. The helicopter approaches, but everything can't be wrapped up that easy now, can it?
That's odd. Something must have those animals spooked.
Yeah, it's probably all the fucking dinosaurs, Reggie.
What is that? Dr. Kirk!
This is a pretty easy little fight. We just shoot some grenades at a distance until Rick calls us over and we make our way down an elevator. Now we've got to find another way off the island, and I think I've got it. This dead guy left a memo about where we might be able to find a boat, so we head back down this giant elevator with Rick and see if we can find it. After turning the power back on down here, we get to work while Rick hangs in the security room. Wouldn't want to team up with all these dinosaurs around now, would we? In this next section, we're introduced to these bad boys, who will absolutely fuck you up if you mess up dodging them. Aside from that, this part of the game amps up on the puzzles and key finding as we're trying to open up more of the facility. I mean, you'd think we were winding things up, but nope, there's plenty more to go. There's also this area where we find Gale, but he just buggers off straight away.
Gale!
Yeah. Well, at least Kirk's running out of places to hide.
Yeah, good chat, mate. Eventually, Rick catches up to us in the security room that'll take us to the port. Rick reckons he can get the door open, but some guy calling through on this dead guy's radio is saying that he has a key to the door. Only problem is, he's got something on his tail. We need that key, so it's back to the main elevator where we'll wait for old mate and mug him for his key. Bring him back with his key. Sounds like he might have company though. Huh, well, that was lucky. Yoink. We chuck the key to Rick and get this door open, but we know by now that it's not going to be that simple. This weird energy field is back from the scientist's weird experiment, so of course we start throwing shit at it.
This vortex must be the side effect of the third energy experiment.
Obviously, we can't go walking through this shit, so it's back to digging around, which took me for fucking ever because I managed to miss this key right here. Seriously, this was so fucking annoying, and when you get lost, these cunts really give you the shits. Anyway, once we do have the right keys, we find the main generator for the third energy. But this thing ain't gonna work without some parts, so we get poking around, touching shit we probably shouldn't be, and then we hear gunshots in the next room. Oof, that looks bad. Better take these fingerprints for later though. We go chasing after the shooter, who is of course old mate Kirk, but before he can go ahead and shoot us, Gale arrives to help out. Now that he's disarmed, Dickface over here can explain how all of this went down.
To put it in terms that even you can understand, third energy has the ability to replace a pocket in space with one from a different time.
What?
Yes, I came to these conclusions following this evening's final experiment. You've seen the effects yourself. Those beasts were occupying the space this facility is located on almost 65 million years ago.
Right. So that's how those dinosaurs appeared in our time.
Now, his grand invention is blocking our escape, and apparently to destroy the vortex, we need the generator's third energy levels to overload. Something to do with cancelling each other out? I don't know, I kind of stopped listening. Point is, we need to find parts to do this, so Rick gives us a program disc and we get searching. First couple of bits are easy enough with this puzzle, and this one didn't even need a puzzle. Easy as! Anyway, we get all the bits and do our little assembly, and next thing you know, everything is all where it needs to be. We're ready to bugger off, but things with Gale and Kirk might set us back a little bit.
What was the point in saving me?
Of course we go help him out and bring him back to Rick, but for some reason he insists on going after Kirk himself, and we can't have that now, can we? So we put him down and let Rick carry him out. Now this last part, I was literally just wandering around to see what I might miss if I went straight to the port and just happened to run into Kirk, which, as it turns out, was really lucky as Rick tells us on the radio that the T-Rex fucked up everything over their way. Crazy. We head down to get them, but the T-Rex is hot on their tail, so while Rick sorts us out moving along, we stay on the platform and hold this guy off. This ends up being super easy because I finally got to use whatever grenade rounds I've been saving up until eventually we make it to the chopper. We're not safe yet though, as this guy ain't letting up. Rick has a trick up his sleeve though, as very conveniently someone attached a bomb to the bottom of this chopper, which he drops right next to the T-Rex, completely fucking him up, and we finally make our escape. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? I mean, I love so much of what this game was going for, and even though bits and pieces here are lacking, I like the piece as a whole, so let's get into talking about it. Ignoring any sequels, Dino Crisis works well as its own little story, and its simplicity is one of its biggest strengths. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I've never played those other games, and if I did, I probably wouldn't play past the second game anyway, but With that aside, this game keeps most of its ideas simple and is a good small horror story. The setup is easy to follow. You're heading to an island after being tipped off that a scientist who worked for the government, who is believed to be dead, may be floating around and we've got to get him back. Perfect, we know exactly what's going on with that. Now what about these bloody dinosaurs? Well, once we realise what this bloke has been trying to achieve, you see why the government wants him back so bad, and the idea of his energy creation sucking dinosaurs out of the past is such an incredibly crazy idea that it's fucking brilliant. This is classic B-movie stuff, just like what we had with Resident Evil, and really manages to have the right balance of silly and serious. It is of course very much of that era with its layers of cheese, but that's definitely not an insult, and the execution is far more convincing than what Mikami had tried to pull off with Resident Evil. The voice acting in this game is obviously far superior, which is hardly setting the bar high as we know. However, revisiting this game, I was actually rather surprised at how good a lot of it was. I mean, you're not getting any award-winning performances here, but what we have is better than a lot of the crap being dished out before and after this game's release. More to the point, I wasn't sitting here during the cutscenes laughing at terrible delivery like I was with a few of the other games that I've covered. There's not really a lot of meme-worthy lines, it's just perfectly serviceable performances for 1999. Nothing more, nothing less. Kirk's voice lines do sound like absolute shit though, but that's more a sound quality issue than anything.
You can't do this! I have rights!
Now, when it comes to the characters, the list is quite small and everything is kept rather tight. The negative side of this is that you won't really have many fresh characters coming in throughout the story, but at least it's easy to focus on the characters that we have. Cooper is taken out before the story even begins, and it's kind of funny that to everyone else he's just disappeared and they have no idea what's happened to him exactly. You've also got Tom, who is responsible for finding Kirk, but is only part of the actual story rather briefly. Rick and Gale are polar opposites in terms of how they go about things, and we the player as Regina then choose who we want to be like throughout the game. It feels like it's setting up Gale to be a bad guy with his attitude, but nah, he's just straight down the line with his mission. That would have probably been a little bit too obvious, I guess, but it feels like the story is avoiding letting itself get too ambitious? I don't know, I think it's both good and bad that they kept everything so simple. Our team's mission sets everything up great, sure, and Dr. Kirk is set up rather mysteriously, but after we go through a bunch of shit then finally catch up to him, he's just kinda okay, I guess. He's a bad dude who faked his death and is continuing to do research that he started for guys on our side. It's fine. He could have had a bit more depth, sure, and doesn't have the so bad it's good edge to be more memorable, but really he's just there to facilitate the true villains of the game, the dinosaurs. Oh yes, the fear and dread brought forth by these creatures is just as memorable and effective all these years later. I didn't really have a way of saying that without sounding silly. Seriously though, the setup for your night with these prehistoric creatures is done exceptionally well for the time, with the introduction of the Velociraptor being on the level of that first encounter with a zombie in Resident Evil. It's just classic horror. The frantic music lends itself well to any of these tight situations, and each of the dinosaurs bring their own terrifying presence wherever you are in the game. Except for these little buggers, they're just so charming. It's not like the list of dinos is even that big either. You're mostly just going to be dealing with raptors, the blue versions of them, these big fuckers whose name I'm not going to butcher, or the occasional pteranodon. For such a light list of enemies, they managed to make it work though. These things carry an intimidating weight around, unlike anything you get from a pathetic zombie. And the big guy, the T-Rex, he's the real big bad guy here. I'm not really one to complain about a lack of variety with enemies if what we get is perfect for the game. If anything, it can hold a game back if you're constantly trying to introduce something new in there. So really, they did well keeping the roster nice and small. How much of that is down to technical limitations, I don't know, but hey, it works. Alright, so we've got a decent story and some great monsters. Let's talk about the graphics. Well, it goes without saying, but this game looks great for a PS1 game. The dinos have a good amount of detail, the gruesome parts of the game look decent, and overall the little details are looking better than ever. With that said, character models look like your standard PS1 blocky models without a whole lot of animation going on, but that's to be expected for the hardware. The only problem is, I'm playing this on a Dreamcast, and a PS1 game is all this ever was and ever could be. At the end of the day, I'm playing an up port of a game on something more in line of a nearly PS2, so while it's great, we aren't exactly seeing a showcase of next-gen hardware. Not all is lost, however. We've still got the very welcome inclusion of sharper video output to make this game look nice and sharp for 2000, but there's just one little problem with that. This game isn't supposed to support VGA at all, so a little workaround is needed. If you want to get this game running, you have to turn the console on with nothing in the AV port. Then you wait for that beep signaling that the system recognizes the game, then immediately plug the cable back in. It's a trick that works for some games, but not others, like say PAL Code Veronica will only give sound but no picture. Why they stripped support out for it, I have no idea, but the trade-off is that the really good CGI cutscenes that are super cool for the time will just not play. The picture completely cuts out until you're back to the in-engine stuff. This means I had to scab video from somewhere else and hope I got the right ending, which I did, and it was a complete fluke. I didn't even check anything for a particular ending, I just happened to find Old Mate at the helicopter. Obviously it's not really a massive issue with these scenes being so readily available online, and there's bugger all of them anyway. It was just the intro, T-Rex attack, and that ending that it was necessary for, and I'm sure there's a patch these days for anyone playing a download of it. All that aside, the game makes a few improvements over Mikami's last outing, the glaringly obvious one being that this game is fully in 3D, no more pre-rendered backgrounds. Now, I've mentioned in the past that I love pre-rendered backgrounds, they're so charming, but this leap to 3D environments was done really well. A lot of work was put in to make these environments feel real, and after 5 years, a lot of PS1 games were really able to make the hardware shine. Sure, I'm just playing a port and it runs fantastically, but the PS1 game running underneath this thing is one of the system's best, even with those funny wonky textures. Obviously with the limitations, some areas might be a bit plain or samey here and there, but then there's other areas where you'll walk into a room and it's just devastation, like these dinos have come in and seriously fucked shit up. Another welcome addition is the camera. Now we're running around in real environments, the camera isn't having to change like the 2D games of the past. Instead we get a Code Veronica style camera. Well, actually that game got a Dino Crisis style camera. Now the camera can follow you around these environments while still keeping the tension high in certain areas where it wants to hide your view of the rest of the room. This is such a great way to design these games. You'll run in somewhere and just hear a dino, but until you run towards it, you can't see it. Again, great stuff. This brings me to the gameplay of Dino Crisis, the meat of which really doesn't stray far from what you'd expect. That's obviously not an insult either. At the end of the day, this formula was the style at the time, and when games did it well, they would really stand the test of time. At least to idiots like me who think these games still control fine. Tank controls are still the standard here, but now like the game Deep Fear, you can move while aiming, which I didn't use that much because I kept forgetting that I could do it, but hey, it's a welcome feature nonetheless. A big problem though is the lack of analog control with this one. For some reason, everything has to be done with a D-pad, and as we all know, the Dreamcast one could be better. So I reckon the best way to play this would actually be on the Saturn controller made for the Dreamcast, which I passed up buying one in Japan and I've been kicking myself ever since. On the plus side, the VMU will show things like ammo and health, which for games like this is just an awesome feature and stops you from having to open menus as much. There are visual cues for health too. Regina will show when she's hurt. Also, you can bleed in this game, which will drain your health slowly. Health pack pickups are rather plentiful, and if you find these plugs, you can access emergency supplies throughout the facility. Kind of like the item box, but you have to unlock it. I never really felt like I was super low on anything, and the mixing feature, if done right, will make things a lot easier. You might use this to make stronger health items, or even stronger poison darts to shoot dinos with, but you can also fuck it up and get a whole lot of not much, so be mindful of what you're putting together. New bits aside, the game gets the standard bits right for a survival horror game, or panic horror as Mikami called it. Much of what you'll be doing is finding keys to get around, which is expected, but I forgot just how puzzle heavy this game is. It's not a complaint, I mean, I enjoy them in any type of game, but really they went all out with this stuff, as well as code finding, which can get a little bit more frustrating to be fair. Like any of these games, if you aren't familiar with it already, you will get stuck or lost, and being only my second playthrough, I was both at times. I did at least find bits here and there that I remembered, but maybe I'll get better than a 7-hour run next time, possibly in one of these costumes I unlocked. Anyway, enough about how shit I am at this game. Let's finally talk about the combat. Oh, the combat. This mostly consists of running away, especially early on because these buggers are tough. You'll have a limited list of guns to fight these dinos off, including a pistol, shotgun, and grenade launcher, but as you can imagine, ammo is going to be limited. There are some weapon add-ons, but also different ammo types, the best of which is the poison dart for the shotgun. Depending on how strong these are, you'll either put a dino to sleep or even kill them. These are even more limited than the other shotgun rounds though, so it's all about picking your targets. That's the whole game, really. Things can go south pretty quickly, but you also can't go through guns blazing because you'll just be in even more trouble. It's only when you can't avoid a fight should you maybe pull out the shotgun or grenade launcher, otherwise get good at dodging. Keep in mind though, these guys can follow you through rooms, so you'll need to be prepared for that. Oh, and the action events you can't avoid, but you just tap A and sort shit out from there. They're really not a problem. Another thing that's not really a problem is fighting the T-Rex. I was always prepared for his fights, so all the boss fights ended up being super easy. At least it felt like the battles were designed for the boss fights, which is not always the case, but I certainly expected something harder for the big finish. Anyway, with that said, I better finish this review. Dino Crisis is a great game, and while it's still stuck in sequel limbo and will probably stay there for a while to come, it's definitely worth revisiting all these years later, and it will very quickly show you why so many people want this series revisited. My only real complaint playing this game is that it wasn't made for the Dreamcast. I can only imagine just how much more this could have been if it was specially made for this system, but hey, the little features it added in, They were great, and this PS1 classic is just worth playing on any system it's available on. This game stands up well with its Resident Evil counterparts, so I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10 on this one. If you like those games, you should definitely check this one out. Anyway, that's all from me today. I'll catch you next time.